I like how she says that a myriad of weather advisories and watches and warnings, and it is. The sheriff and I were talking before the program how difficult it can be to predict weather in our mountains because we're working with 3 different National Weather Service offices for certain counties, and so all those national services have different things to say about all the counties they cover. So we have a huge list on our website under weather page of what to kind of expect if things fall the way they're supposed to fall. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
I'm doing well this morning.
You came in and blinded by the sunshine.
Yeah, a little sun blind when I came in this morning.
Yeah. I was glad to see that. Yeah.
I think people would like to see a little bit more sunshine here in the next few days.
And I'm glad to see it's warming up just a little bit today.
Right. But I think it's going to be cold the next couple of days and some snow moving in. And I don't think it's going to be a huge weather event. But like you say, you don't ever know with this area. It seems like with Cherokee and Clay County is the 2 hardest counties anywhere in the southeast to predict what the weather is going to do.
Right.
But we do know that we're probably going to get some snow out of this. And it could be anywhere from a dusting to a couple inches, what they're saying. So we'll just have to see what happens.
And as far as safety on the road, sometimes the snow, people can drive safely in the snow, but if there's black ice on the roads, a lot of times people don't see that. They're driving along and the black ice can be spotty.
Right.
So if you're driving regular speed on a dry surface and then all of a sudden in a shady area there's ice on the road,
Right.
that kind of throws folks for a loop.
It does, and literally throws them for a loop. And like I say, when there's icy conditions, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. The main thing is, if possible, try to maintain your speed if you can. Even letting off your accelerator real quickly is the same as mashing brakes on ice. So try to maintain your speed, keep your accelerator mashed to a certain extent if you can, and try to keep your vehicle as straight as you can. Sometimes that's not as easy said. It's easier said than done, but what happens a lot of times on the black ice is, especially if you spin sideways, you spin off the ice and then hit the dry pavement, which catches and will cause a vehicle to roll over at that point. So if you can keep it straight or relatively straight, you're a lot better off to do that. And that's why I say maintain the accelerator and accelerate to try to straighten that up if possible. But most of the time on black ice, things happen before you know it's happening, and it's typically over with before you even realize it's happening. So that's kind of hard to do on ice.
I try to make a mental map of places that I know are not going to get sunshine,
Right.
So that I know to approach those areas a little slower than normal if I'm driving on these conditions, or places where there's always water puddled up.
Right.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Just I guess that's kind of like Terminator, looking out.
It is.
And just.
And one of the places in the county that always stands out when you think about that is the Brady Curve up in Andrews. Before you get to Topton up there, the sun hardly ever shines in that curve, and so even when temperatures do get up to 32, 33, 34 degrees, sometimes even in that curve there's still ice because the sun hasn't shone there, and there's still ice there in that area. So anybody that lives in that area knows to be careful when you're approaching that curve. But what the problem is, people passing through the area that's not familiar with it, that's where a lot of our accidents happen.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
But speaking of the snow coming in and cold weather and things that happen, I want to report that this year so far we have delivered 34 pickup truckloads of wood and 5 dump truckloads of firewood to needy families in the county.
Oh,
and
wow,
so,
that's great.
We are still doing that. We're still delivering the wood. What we are trying to request for people to do, though, is to go through Department of Social Services and try to get on their energy assistance program down there. And what they will do is they will contact us when we need to deliver wood to a certain residence or a certain place. If you can't get on that list, or if you've been on that list and they won't bring you any more wood and you're elderly and you're still needy, but then you can call us and we'll still deliver you some wood. We'll still get it there. But one of the problems that we've been facing this year with undertaking this is we started it last winter and we're kind of really developed it this winter. But one of the things we're facing into is sometimes that the same people wants wood all the time. They want you to supply them all winter long. And what the program is for, what we're doing is try to get it spread out throughout the county to divide it to different people for emergency situations. And you know, a lot of times these people that wants the wood delivered, they are needy, they are elderly a lot of times. But sometimes they have family that can take care of them. They have children that are well able-bodied, who have money and those kind of things. And so we're not here to try to provide wood all winter long for people. We're here to try to just apply it in emergency situations and to keep people from freezing to death. So we want to make sure that people understand that and understand the difference in that.
Then there's a lot of folks out there I know that probably are needing help, but they're too proud to ask for assistance.
Right.
And they may not even know that energy assistance program is available.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's a good point you make there, Tim. And just so that people know, there is an energy assistance program through our Department of Social Services, and it doesn't cost anything. All it is just go down there or call down there and sign up for that program, and they'll need to know your economic status and age and all those type things. And there's some other criteria that needs to be met, but they'll talk with you through that, and they'll let you know whether you qualify for that program or not. And if you do, then they can help supply the firewood. And it's not just firewood, but it can be gas, it can be oil, it can be all kinds of different things through that program. So just know the Department of Social Services is also here to help our elderly population and the people who need help. So
the ultimate goal is that the people that are in need, they should not freeze this winter.
That is the goal. That is the goal. And we have met also with people from the homeless shelter and different agencies throughout the county to discuss our homeless population and the people who are living out in tents and living under bridges and those type of things that are in our area. There's not a whole lot of them. There are just a few in our area, but still we want to make sure that those people are taken care of during the cold weather, and they at least have an opportunity to come to some of these places. Right. Sometimes when we approach these people, that lifestyle they live is an option that they choose to live, and they choose to live in the tent or they choose to live under the bridge, and that's where they want to be.
Right.
And sometimes we offer them to come to warm places and to shelters and things of that nature, and a lot of times they just refuse. They won't come. They don't want to come. But we still want to make that option available for them to where when it does get cold, they can come in to a shelter somewhere.
Why do they just see the badge and think that?
A lot of times, and a lot of times it's even with our homeless population, sometimes it's a prideful thing,
right.
Just like it is with other people. And sometimes it's the thought process of, I've done this for years, I can deal with it, I've done this on my own, I've lived on streets for X amount of years, and so it's no big deal. So a lot of times they approach it from that point of view also.
Right.
And like I say, we can't make anybody come to a shelter. We can't make anybody come to a warm place. But we can certainly encourage them, and we can take them food and take them other things. I know that there's been several churches around that's brought canned supplies and cleaning supplies and those type of things, just hygiene type stuff for people, and canned food and powdered milk and all those kind of things. And we've went out and actually just tried to distribute that around to the people that we know is homeless and that are in need, trying to get that to the appropriate people who could use it. So if there's any churches or assistants out there that would like to do those things, organizations that would like to do those things, if you would, you can bring those things to the sheriff's office or to the homeless shelter or even the Department of Social Services, and we'll try to get them to the appropriate people that needs those things.
Very good.
Right now, we changing gears just a little bit. We have 95 inmates in our facility, and we typically keep around anywhere from 90 to 100, somewhere along in there. Sometimes it drops low, down in the 70s or in 80s, and but we try to keep around anywhere from 90 to 100 in there all the time. And we have right now we have 75 males and 18 females, and we are holding 17 from Graham County, 4 from Macon County, and 14 federal inmates right now. And it's kind of been a tough year for us because of the federal inmate program. They've kind of not been sending the federal inmates like they used to in years past. And we went out in Asheville and met with the U.S. Marshals and met with different people about this, and trying to get some more help and trying to get some more federal inmates out here because they do pay well and they do make money off these inmates. And but from what we've been hearing across the state is that this has been a problem across the state, that the federal government has just not been convicting and sentencing people like they have been in years past. And a lot of our resources in the federal government has been given toward terrorism and has been given toward those type of things. And so the drug crimes, the white-collar crimes, these other things that they've investigated in the past where they've actually convicted people on and put them in jail is just not happening. So we are experiencing this whole past year a decline in the federal population, which declines in revenue and declines in other things in the facility. but our inmate totals are still staying up around 90 to 95. And that's good in the fact of that we are got plenty of people, plenty of room, to keep our officers busy and to keep the facility busy. However, it's just not making the money that it was in the past because of the federal inmate program. But we do make money off these other counties when we held our inmates for them there also. But we do make some money, but it's just not been like it has been in years past. And we're hoping that will change, hopefully in this coming year, as the federal government changes. So,
and a lot of people may look at the detention center and not see that as a facility that needs to generate revenue, but that is part. You have to generate the revenue to be able to offer the goods and services.
Right. And it's just like just like everything else we do on the sheriff's office side. We're not even talking about detention, but on the sheriff's office side, when we're looking at buying vehicles and hiring people and paying all these salaries and different things that go out, we try to generate revenue on that side also, and that falls in our gun permit process, our purchase permits, our conceal permits, and also what we've done this past year is even our old vehicles that we've had, instead of just send them to a junkyard or whatever, we've been trying to pull them off while they're still usable, and then selling those vehicles to try to generate some revenue back in to purchase the new vehicles. So we're always looking at ways of trying to generate revenue and trying to bring some stuff into the sheriff's office to counteract some of these things that's happened in the federal population.
If it weren't for that, then pretty much it would all have to be taxpayer funded, correct?
That's exactly right. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to generate this type of revenue so we don't have to go to the taxpayers and say, you need to buy us another car. We're trying to do that in other ways. And also with the talking about the federal government, with the drug tax program, the seizure program, that is on a freeze right now also. And we can still, it's what they call DAG forms. And when we do a buy, we can do a DAG form and do an arrest. We can do a DAG form and send that in to the federal government and request so much of the proceeds back out of that arrest to be turned over to the sheriff's office, whether it's cash seized or whether it's a vehicle seized or what it may be, and they can send a portion of that money back to the sheriff's office. But that has also been frozen by the federal government. Now the federal government is saying we're taking 100% of those proceeds and none of it's going back to local law enforcement. So that hurts also, and that hurts local law enforcement. And so we're trying to look at other ways, like I say, by selling cars and trying to do these things to try to generate enough revenue back to where we can purchase the things we need at the sheriff's office without having to go to taxpayers and ask for taxpayer money.
I guess it gets a little frustrating when the rules of the game keep changing.
They do.
While you're trying to play the game.
It does, and especially after it's worked so well in years past, and you walk in and expect it to continue the same and expect the revenue to continue to come in, and then the federal government changes the rules on you midstream. It's very frustrating because then you have to figure out what are we going to do now. And right now we've got budget coming up. It's time for another budget cycle, and so we're putting budgets together to turn into the county. And so we have to take all these things into consideration as far as the revenue, as to what we can ask for and what we need at the sheriff's office, and even the things we need, how are we going to pay for it? So all these things have to go into consideration when you do your budget process. So it can be a little frustrating sometimes.
I bet.
Yeah.
One of the biggest news stories last week was about you and Union County Sheriff's Office cooperating with some other agencies as well, and a very large prescription drug ring. Tell us about how that happened and the involvement.
Well, I can tell you kind of the nuts and bolts of it, but it is still an ongoing investigation, and it's still an investigation that we're doing in Cherokee County. But basically how that came about was Union County had been filing complaints and been receiving complaints from citizens about some of these doctors in Union County and prescriptions they've been writing. We kind of teamed up with Union County and talked to them about this, and we found out that a lot of the prescriptions that was being written from the doctor's offices in Blairsville were actually being filled in Cherokee County. Not just Cherokee County, but other surrounding counties also.
Right.
But primarily, one doctor, Dr. Heaton, and I know a lot of people here see Dr. Heaton and go to him for legitimate reasons, and he did run a legitimate practice also.
Right.
But a lot of people here go to Dr. Heaton, and what we started finding was that a lot of the prescriptions that he was writing were being filled in Cherokee County, and when we looked at the names of a lot of these people that were getting prescriptions were known drug dealers and drug users in Cherokee County. And they were a lot of people that we knew were putting pills on the street in Cherokee County. So we started working in conjunction about a year ago with Union County and brought the DEA in involved in this because it was crossing state lines and multi-jurisdictional. Right. And the DEA basically worked with us and helped pull prescription pharmacy records and helped us pull doctor records and all those type of things. And what we started seeing on pulling these records on these doctors that were arrested was these doctors were writing prescriptions that a lot of the prescriptions they were writing were to people who did not exist and were being filled, and their family members were picking up these prescriptions. Or it could be writing prescriptions to people who do exist, but overprescribing and writing excessive amounts and to people, and finding out that these same people, when compared to doctors' records, they were no record of them ever going to the doctor's office or being visited at the doctor's office. So it was a kind of an under-the-table operation that was going on. So people can understand this, basically what we're seeing is there were two different operations that were happening. There were legitimate people with legitimate problems going to these doctors.
Right.
And these people were being processed through the doctor's office correctly. They were being processed through the patient records and all this type of things correctly. And these were the patients that was basically paying for the personnel and were keeping the lights on and paying the power bill and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And then there was a whole completely different operation that was a cash operation under the table that was not being brought through the doctor's offices, but was circumventing the proper procedures. And these were the people that we're finding putting a lot of prescriptions on the street, and that a lot of our people that were selling drugs on the street were getting their prescriptions and getting their pills from.
All right. Help me understand this.
Okay.
If they are writing prescriptions to people that don't exist, how does that pass through the pharmacy without?
Well, what happens is, just using this for an example, if I'm a doctor and I write a prescription, and I write a prescription for a Mexican missionary, Tim Radford. He's a missionary in Mexico, and Tim don't exist. And I can, as a doctor, I can call the pharmacy and I can say, okay, I want 400, write Tim Radford a prescription for 400 oxycodone. And he's going to be in Mexico for 3 months. And then what happens is Tim don't exist, but somebody shows up and signs for that. And so a lot of times what we were finding, it could be a relative of the doctor that was showing up to sign for this prescription, or it could be an employee of the doctor that was showing up and signing for the prescription, or it could be just your average person on the street that was showing up and signing for this prescription. As a pharmacist, when they issue these things out, as you know, you have to show an identification and sign for these things. And just like, you know, it could be your wife, it could be your child, it could be your parents. They call up and say, hey, I'm sick, I can't get to the pharmacy, can you run by and pick this up for me? As long as you sign for it and show ID, anybody can pick up the prescription.
Okay.
And so as long as you know the prescription's there, who it's for, a date of birth, and can sign for it, and you can go pick up that prescription. So these people that didn't exist, these pharmacists were starting to see different people picking these same prescriptions up, and they're thinking, okay, if it's a Mexican missionary and they're supposed to be in Mexico, why is the doctor's wife picking this prescription up? You know, or why is their child picking it up?
Things just aren't adding up.
Right, or why is Joe Blow, who lives at 123 Main Street in Murphy, picking this up, you know, for a missionary in Mexico? So even at that, you know, a lot of times the pharmacist will call and say, hey, something's just not right with this. I don't know if it's legitimate or not, but this just don't seem right. And so then it's up to us to investigate to find out whether it's legal or whether it isn't. So those type of things is kind of what you see, and it could be that. And there's a lot of different things that was going on here that, like I say, it's just under investigation, and we'll have to sort through who was legitimate, who wasn't later. But we can tell you this, that through that one doctor's office, that we seized box after box after box of just Cherokee County residents that was going to this one doctor. And as going through the names and seeing the names on this, some of them were easy to say, well, that's so-and-so, I know them, I know they have a legitimate problem, they're probably not involved in anything. But there were other ones that we looked at and said, hey, I know that so-and-so. We've arrested him 3 or 4 different times for selling pills, so this is where he's getting his pills at. And so we're just trying to sort through that to see who is legitimately getting them and who isn't. Now, one thing I do want to clarify, too, about this is if you obtain a script fraudulently, you cannot fill that script. It doesn't matter if there's a doctor's name on it or if there is a DEA number on it. If it's a fraudulent script and you obtained it and you go to a pharmacy to fill it, you've committed a felony at that point by filling that prescription. So, for example, if Tim Radford's the doctor and I go to Tim and I say, "Hey, Tim, I don't have any problems, but hey, I'll give you $500 to write me a prescription."
Right.
And Tim writes that prescription for me anyway, knowing that I don't have a legitimate reason, but he just wants the $500. And he writes that script, and I get the script. Dr. Tim Radford can put on there his name and the DEA control number and all that, and it looks legitimate on the face. But I obtained it fraudulently, which means that when I go to the pharmacy to try to pass that at a pharmacy, it's a fraudulent script. It doesn't matter that it's written by a doctor.
Right.
And so those are the things that we're investigating now, and those are the things that we're looking at to see what citizens we have in Cherokee County who are obtaining these things fraudulently and putting the pills on the street.
I'm going to, after today's show, I'm going to start signing my name, Dr. Tim Radford, Mexican missionary.
There you go. That will work. Yeah. But those are examples about how some of these things can happen, you know, and what happens is kind of over the years, it worked this way kind of when I was at the Drug Task Force and investigated doctors back then, is there's this perception that I'm a doctor and I can write whatever kind of script I want to write. Nobody can question me about it, and I can do what I want to do. Well, how that's developed over the years is you have good, legitimate doctors who need that authority to write prescriptions how they feel like they need to be written. But you have other people who go into the medical field for the purpose of circumventing the way you're supposed to do it and making money illegally.
There's a responsibility in that career.
Right, there's a responsibility there. And so what's happening is because of that mentality is kind of bled over to some of these other people who are scrupulous. And so they think that, well, since I'm a doctor and I can do what I want to do and nobody can't question it, I'll just circumvent the whole DEA process and circumvent the whole medical process, and I'll make some money on the side here. And what they're actually doing is they're committing felonies by doing that.
Right.
And so for our local doctors that's listening, for those that are out there, we just want to encourage you to do the right thing, to prescribe to people who need it, to be a doctor and treat people who need to be treated, but be very cautious when those people are coming in the street and obtaining things that they really don't need, and be very cautious about what you write.
How long had this one particular investigation been going on? We
were involved with it for about 8 months. Before the arrest the other day. I know that Union County had looked at it for a few months prior to that, and I know that through the research that they did in Union County and the DEA and our involvement in this, I do know that it's been going on for years, though. It's not something that's just happened within the last year. It has been going on for years in the past.
All right. When comparing, say, illegal drugs such as meth and those compared to prescription abuse, which is still illegal abusing.
Right.
Which is a bigger problem, prescription or?
Hands down, prescription abuse is the biggest problem that we face. It's 10 times bigger than any other problem that we have out there. And the reason it's a bigger problem is because even legitimate people, even people who have no desire to be addicted, people who have no desire to sell pills, people who have no desire to put this stuff on the street, there's still a mentality with people that if a doctor prescribes it to me, that it's okay.
Right.
And that if a doctor prescribes it, I'm good to go, and there's nothing wrong with it. And what happens with people is they have a surgery, they have a knee surgery or shoulder surgery or car wreck or things that happen, and the doctor keeps putting them on these pills, and instead of the goal of weaning them off the pills and the goal of getting them away from that, we have some doctors who just keep writing more and more and more to these people until they get to a point where they're addicted to this stuff and they don't even realize they're addicted. The only thing they know is I hurt when I don't have it. I feel better when I do have it, and I hurt when I don't have it. But what they don't understand is a lot of that hurt comes from their addiction. It comes because they're addicted to it. And so even they're legitimate people who are good people in the community, they're good people who has no desire to be in the drug business, have no desire to do these things. Sometimes because of the prescription issue and because of the doctor issue, they get people addicted to things, and people get addicted to it and can't get off of it. And then the danger of that is once they lose their doctor, once their doctor retires, or once their doctor goes somewhere else, and they go to a different doctor, that different doctor may look at it and say, hey, you're taking way too much of this stuff. Let's start weaning you back. And because of their addiction, then they turn to other things. They may turn to the heroines and to the methamphetamines and turn to buying pills off the street and things of that nature. Just because, like I say, all they know is I hurt when I don't have it, and I feel better when I do have it. And a lot of times people don't realize that's an addiction. It's not a medical issue. It's an addiction that you have, and they turn to other people and other ways of getting that. And before you know it, they are using heroin, they're using methamphetamine, or they are buying pills off the street, which they never intended to do in the first place. It's all stemmed out of a legitimate medical reason. And so that's one of the reasons why prescription medication is so dangerous. And then if you go back and you look at overdose deaths that we have, and we look at these things where people have died because of the drugs they're using, the vast majority of those things is off prescription medications. You do have a few methamphetamine overdoses, you do have a few heroin overdoses and those things that happen. But when you go back way more often than not, when you have an overdose, it's usually over some pills and over a pill bottle that's beside them. And so people have this misconception that if a doctor prescribed it, it's safe, it's okay. But if you don't use it the way the doctor prescribes it, then it becomes not only an addiction, but it can be your death.
I think all of us have experienced this, sitting there waiting in the doctor's waiting office, and then someone carrying a briefcase comes in that is from a drug company, and of course they cut straight through and go visit with the doctor. Do the doctors get any kind of kickback for prescribing medications?
They do. A lot of doctors do. And what happens from pharmaceutical drug companies, representatives that come in to sell these things, and it's not true of every company, it's not true of every representative, but what happens from time to time is they will come in and they'll tell, going back to Dr. Radford again, they'll go to Dr. Radford and they'll say, hey, I say you're writing a lot of OxyContin scripts. Well, you're getting way up there, so if you'll write 500 more this month, if you'll write 500 more, then we'll give you a free flat screen TV, if you'll write more. Or they may come back and later say, if you get X amount of scripts out of your office this year, we'll give you a vacation to Hawaii. We'll send you and your family to Hawaii on vacation, just so as an appreciation.
There's an incentive there.
So there's an incentive to keep writing those scripts. And like I say, that's not true of every doctor, and that's not true of every representative that's out there. But it does happen. It does happen quite often. And what happens is for a lot of these doctors and these representatives evaluate these doctors, and they see Dr. X over here that's writing a whole lot of scripts. Well, he's obviously writing pretty free with these scripts, so let's target him. Let's give him some incentive to write more. Let's give him some incentive to keep that flowing and use our product. And when you think about things like OxyContin and these other pills and that's out there, using OxyContin for an example, OxyContin is not the pill. That's the brand. That's the company that sells it.
Right.
Oxycodone is the pill. That's the drug.
I didn't know that.
And so when you think about OxyContin, there's OxyContin Company has got representatives out here trying to encourage doctors to sell their brand of oxycodone. And so there's generic brands, there's other things that's out there. But when a doctor is writing a script and he says, okay, I can write 150 oxycodone generic, or I can write 150 oxycodone from the OxyContin Company who's going to give me a free TV, he'll write it from the OxyContin Company. And that way that's what they'll fill on the script when the pharmacist fills the script. So it can be a complicated but lucrative process for these doctors that are out there. And people who have high morals and high characters, the doctor don't pay attention to this stuff and continue to be good doctors, continue to treat people fairly and continue to treat their community. But there are people out there that get sucked into this scheme that's out there. And sometimes these doctors see a different way of making some extra money. So, it's just something that you have to be careful with that's out there. And one of the quotes I love, I don't remember who made the quote, but he talked about power. When you have power and authority, it doesn't change the person. What it does, it just accentuates what the person already is, and it increases it more. So if you have somebody who has who are maybe unscrupulous, or somebody who does not have good moral integrity, when they get in the process where they can make a lot of money and have a lot of power and do these things, it just accentuates that. But when you have other doctors who do have good moral character and integrity, when they have the power, it accentuates that also. So we don't want to lump all doctors into one category. We don't want to lump all pharmacies into one category. We don't want to lump all representatives into one category, because there are differences between them. That'd be like saying that a sheriff's the same across the country, and that's just not true. We're all different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically stereotyping people is not the right way to go.
It is. But it's important that people know these things do happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, these things are out there. And one thing we're hoping to accomplish by this process with these doctors is we're hoping that the good doctors that are out there, the good doctors who do have moral and some integrity, and the good doctors who are there for the right reason, who they will see this going on, and it will remind them, hey, I don't want to fall into that trap.
Right.
I don't want to fall into that category. And so it may cause them to tighten up on their prescription writing just a little bit and tighten up a little bit on what they're putting on the street also.
You know, people who are on certain medications, a lot of them are not able to be behind a wheel of a car very good, but we see that all the time. Do you have to pull over a lot of people that may be intoxicated, not from alcohol, but from drugs?
We don't run into that a whole lot. It does happen, and sometimes we do. That's why they changed the law to driving while impaired. It used to be driving while under the influence or driving while intoxicated, but now it's driving while impaired. And one of the reasons why they changed that is because they included in the statute pills and other intoxicating things that are out there to impair your judgment, to impair these things in your system. So that does happen from time to time, and we have pulled people over that's all over the road and weaving just like an intoxicated driver would be. But when you do a breathalyzer, they blow double zeros. They haven't been drinking. And so then you have to evaluate, well, what is it that's causing them to drive this way? So a lot of times if they are impaired, if it's obvious they're impaired, they will still be arrested and taken through the process. But instead of doing the intoxilizer where you normally blow through the tube, they'll actually do a blood draw, and then they'll evaluate them on the blood, what drugs are in the system or what's causing you to be impaired. So that's kind of the way that operates.
Okay. I know we're running beyond time, but we wanted to mention about the roadside cleanup. Yes.
One thing I do want to mention, too, is I know there's been a lot of topic in the Cherokee Scout and a lot of topic in Facebook and stuff lately about the litter on the roadways and those type of things. What we've decided to do this year at the Sheriff's Office is we are not doing an inmate garden at all this year. That is found. We tried it last year to see if it was being successful or not, or if it was offsetting the cost or not. It was minimal. It was not worth the effort of doing to offset the cost of the inmate food at the jail. So what we decided to do this year is we've acquired an inmate trailer from Franklin County, North Carolina. It's a work trailer with a porta-john on it, and we can store stuff in it when we go to work. And basically what you'll be seeing this year is you'll be seeing, starting when the weather warms up a little bit, is inmates on the roadside picking up trash this year. And so our goal this year is going to be to do trash pickup and to clean our roadways and those type of things. So we hope that'll be a success this year, and we hope the people will appreciate that. And so we do want to start that up, and we'll be starting with 4 lanes and things first. Before we hit the secondary roads, but obviously we want to only do this in places where we can be safe on the side of the roads and where the inmates can be safe on the side of the roads. We don't want to put them on secondary roads where someone could get hit or where cars be hitting us or running over the inmates and no place to get off the road. So we'll be primarily working in places where we can get off the side of the road safely and where the inmates can get off the side of the road safely.
I can almost guarantee that no one is going to complain about cleaner roadsides.
I don't think so. I hope not anyway.
This road is too clean.
Right. And along with that, real quick, I know we're extremely late, but one thing with that, I know a lot of people ask about our radar trailer that we used to set up on the side of the roads and stuff. We have redone that. We've refurbished that trailer, got it back up operational again, and got it working. And hopefully within the next couple weeks, we'll have everything done and have that out to be set up in areas where you have speeders and different things in that area, just to remind people to slow down a little bit. So give me a couple more weeks, and after a couple weeks, that should be available to different communities and people who need it. I know a lot of times, like revivals and things of that nature, sometimes when there's people parking on the side of the road, they request that trailer just to remind people to slow down. It shows your speed on it. It shows if you're speeding and how much over the speed limit you're doing and things of that nature, and school zones and different things. A lot of people request that. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have it back operational again out there on the side of the road.
All right. Sheriff, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And our time is 11:39. It's WKRK Radio in Murphy, North Carolina.